These are the new metal releases for October 18th, 2024. I have a mix of genres as always. I have some extreme folk metal, some symphonic power metal, a few death metal bands, and some stoner rock and some melodic death metal or goth rock. So with that being said, let's get right into it.
And even an act of kindness can lead to death.
The first band I have is Ensiferum, and the name of the album is Winter Storm. This is a band from Finland. They call themselves extreme folk metal. They're from Helsinki, and the name of the band actually means sword bearing. They've been around a while. They formed back in 1995. The first album was released in 2001, and this is their 9th album. This is their first one in 4 years. The album has 10 tracks, and there are a few intro tracks and interludes, and some of the songs are in the 7 or 8 minute range. So let's talk a little bit about it. The opening track is an instrumental called Aurora, which is just some acoustic guitar strumming and soft melodies. It sounds like epic power metal if they're getting ready to go into battle. One of the standout tracks is called Fatherland, and this has some very fast drumming, the kind you would expect from a typical power metal band. I think the difference is in the vocals, where they sound a little bit more like a typical melodic death metal band. Song has some big choruses, they sing the chorus, and it sounds a bit more like power metal. There's another song that stands out called Scars in My Heart. It features a guest singer, and her name is Madeline Leedstam, and she's from the symphonic metal band called Elaine. This song sounded more like a typical symphonic metal song. It had female vocals, and I thought it was similar to some early Nightwish songs. It was on the slower side, so I would call it a power ballad. It's a slower moving song. It doesn't have that rapid fire drum beats as some of the other songs. It was also one of the easier listening songs, as it's just under 5 minutes long. There was another song I liked. It's called The Howl, and this had a very big and epic sound. They bring back some of their heavier sounds on this one. The drums are faster, the vocals are heavier. They have some clean and harsh vocals on this one. So there's a nice balance between the heaviness and the melody. I think this band does a good job using different vocal styles throughout their songs, as it helps give each song their own character. As for the other instruments, you can hear guitars and keyboards equally, so one does not overpower the other. But this song, The Howl, has some softer and heavier parts, and they switch gears throughout the song, going from fast and heavy to the bigger and epic sounds. Overall, it's not too bad. This was my first time listening to this band, and it's not one of the subgenres of metal I go to often. I will give this 7.5 out of 10. It may go up by the end of the month. There was another band that released an album this year called Tear, and the album was called Battle Ballads. I thought that was a little better than this one, but let me see if this one grows on me. The next band I have is Frozen Crown, and the album is War Hearts. This is an Italian power metal band that formed in 2017. I was familiar with the band because they released an album last year called Cold in the North, and I ranked it number 7 on my end of the year list for power metal. I think the album from last year was a little better than this one. I remember the last album having heavier guitar riffs, but I felt this one was more leaning towards melodic power metal. So let me talk about that one now. This is a female-fronted band. The vocalist, her name is Giada, and she was previously in a band called Ashes You Leave. This album has 10 songs. It's 42 minutes long. The opening track is called War Hearts. It had a typical power metal sound with fast drum beats and some fast guitar playing. They have a style that reminded me of the band Dragon Force, where they rely on speed and melody. The vocals are melodic. They have a few riffs that sound heavy, but most in general, the song is upbeat. There was another song that I liked called Night of the Wolf. This had the fast drum beats, big vocals. After this was a song called On Silver Wings. I like the song because it had some of those heavy metal style guitar riffs that I remembered from their last album. I felt this was a little heavier, and the pace of the song was not as fast as some of the others. Although there are some parts of the song that have fast drum rolls, the song still has their signature power metal sound. After this is a song called Edge of Reality. This one gets a little heavy, but also has their signature power metal sound with fast rhythms. I found most of the songs to have a similar sound. The band did not stray from the formula too much. I think the previous album had some heavier riffs. I thought this album was lacking some of them, but I think if you are a power metal fan, you might like this sound better. The last song on the album was called Ice Dragon. It's a 7-minute plus epic. So this album has lots of different stuff going on. And so I like this one. But anyway, let me go right to my ranking, my score. I thought the previous album was a little better, but it's not too bad. So I'm going to give this 7.5 out of 10. If you're a fan of power metal, this band pretty much gives you what you expect. Next is Escuela Grind with Dreams on Algorithms. This is a New England-based band that combines hardcore, grind, and metal. The album is titled Dreams on Algorithms and based on the world we live in and how everyone is so obsessed with their cell phones and social media and everything like that. The album has 10 songs. It's exactly 30 minutes long. The first song on the album is called DOA. It's an acronym for the album titled Dreams on Algorithms. So it kind of makes you think like something else. But basically, it's a 2-minute song. The first minute is completely brutal. And then at the 1-minute mark, they slow it down for the breakdown. They have some really brutal guitar riffs and they speed it up again. After this is a song called Always Watching You. This sounded more like thrash with lots of those palm muted guitar riffs, lots of galloping rhythms. It's a very heavy song, lots of tempo changes, lots of breakdowns. Then there's a song called Constant Passenger, and this song has the Akasha string. They continue with this heavy chugging sound in this one. The vocals are very brutal. It sounds like they have 2 vocalists on the track. And I noticed this band likes to play their music in like short bursts where they're coming at you very fast or very slow. They're always changing tempos, and that makes the songs very memorable. The next song is called Moral Injury. They continue with the same sound. I think they're trying to play with the tempos in this one. They're focusing on the slower and deeper notes. The song also has a pretty cool groove. It almost reminded me of some of that crossover thrash. After this is a song called Concept of God, which continues with a style of brutal hardcore, lots of different changes, as well as some very deep guttural vocals. I also noticed that the song has some very thick bass guitar as well. Then the next song, Animus Multiform, sounded like some kind of death metal and thrash metal hybrid with those chunky guitar riffs with the deep guttural vocals and the blast beats. So as you can see, this band likes to blend lots of different styles together, and that makes them very unique. They don't really sound like every other death metal band out there. Then there's the song Scorpion. It had a mix of some slower riffs that were accompanied with these short bursts of energy. They do this in a way so that the song still sounds very heavy and brutal. Let me also mention that this track has some of the best drumming as well. The last track is called Turbulence, and this one stands out. It has some female vocals on it. And overall, this was my favorite album of the week. It's heavy, it's brutal, but the songs are very memorable as well. And they keep things interesting throughout the album. So it doesn't sound like everything blends together, but at the same time, they maintain the same sound throughout. It's one of those 30-minute albums like Slayer's Rain and Blood where you listen to it front to back. My score is a 9 out of 10. I know they released an EP earlier this year. It's called like Death Metal or something like that. I actually haven't listened to it yet, but I'll have to get to it. In the meantime, this is my album of the week. Next is Deserts of Mars, and the album is called Dead Planet Exodus. This is a stoner rock metal band from Austin, Texas. They formed back in 2006. This is their second full-length album, and this comes after 13 years, although they did release an EP in 2019 as well. The album has 10 songs, and it's a concept album. It's about the planet Mars. The opening track is called Crash Down, and it begins with some big and ominous notes on the guitar, and then some cool psychedelic bass guitar riffs, and that brings you into the album. The vocals were kind of similar to King Diamond, but when he sings in a lower range, like not the falsetto vocals. The lyrics described some type of spacecraft that's approaching the planet. The song is a thick guitar and bass sound and some powerful drum rhythms. And the song also gets a little progressive as well with some tempo changes that go into some heavier, almost like Black Sabbath style guitar riffs. And then according to the lyrics, it tells a story how the spaceship crashes into the planet and they see lots of dead bodies, and that's my interpretation of it. Next is Temple of the Rain. This one had a sound similar to one of the more popular stoner rock bands such as Caius or Fu Manchu. It was steady rocker. In the story, they tell you how the main character wanders the desert and finds a temple on the planet. Song has a few things going for it. You can hear the bass guitar in a few parts of the song, and there's some heavy guitar riffs, and the song is also very melodic. After this is a song called Shilluminati. They introduce the main enemy of the story. From the lyrics, it appears to be some kind of cult that tries to sell people their dreams. The song reminded me of the band Mastodon a little, but it was much slower and a lot more sludgier. I'm not going to go into the rest of the story, but when you listen to the album, you can read the lyrics, and the story is pretty easy to follow. As for the rest of the music, there's a song called Dead Planet. It has more of an upbeat and groovy sound. A song called Darkness that has some thick bass guitar playing. Reminding me of some of that old 70s proto-metal mixed with a little bit of prog rock and psychedelic. Then Midnight Comes has a slower pace, it's very trippy and psychedelic sound. Kind of like some early Pink Floyd mixed with thick and distorted guitar and bass riffs. Then a song called Never, which was more straightforward rocker with a big chorus. Then a song called Temporal Vampires had more of a 90s grungy sound with thick bass guitar sound. Maybe something along the lines of Queens of the Stone Age meets Mastodon. The penultimate song is called Crimson Mountain, and it sounded like some proto-metal of the 70s. And the last song called Fallen. This was very trippy and psychedelic with a slower pace, and the song brings the story to an end. So overall, it was very good. It's a mix of some of that stoner rock from the 90s, like Caius or Fu Manchu, with a little bit of early 70s proto-metal, mixed with some modern progressive sludge, such as Mastodon. I also like the fact that it has a story, it's easy to follow, and it keeps things interesting, so you can kind of read the lyrics as you listen to the music. A really good one. I'm going to give this album 8 out of 10. I recommend it if you like the stoner metal, you like concept albums, you like sci-fi, or any of the above. Definitely check it out. The next band I have is called Swallow the Sun. The name of the album is Shining. This is one of those bands, I think I've heard the name before. I don't think I've listened to them, or I may have heard a song or two on a typical streaming playlist at some point in time, but it's not the type of band I really know very well. But basically, they are a Finnish death doom band. They formed in the year 2000, and they have elements of gothic and black metal in their sound. Now, I've seen a few community posts by other metal channels who shall remain nameless, and they were saying they didn't like this album because they were moving towards more of a commercial sound and there were more elements of goth rock. But with that being said, I kind of like that type of thing, and I'm listening to them as a newcomer. I went into this album with an open mind, so let me talk about it. The album has 10 songs, it's 49 minutes long. First track was called Innocence Was Long Forgotten, and yeah, I agree, it does kind of sound a little bit more commercial, a little closer to goth rock, maybe something along the lines of In Flames when they changed their sound to be more accessible, something like that. But I like the guitar sound, you can hear the bass, the vocals were very clean, kind of reminded me of either like a post-punk or new wave. I don't know how the vocals were before, but the second song is called What I Have Become, and I immediately felt a darker and heavier type of song. And I heard the vocals, I heard like low, deep guttural vocals. So I'm assuming that's how they sounded before. By the way, if you are a fan of this band and you have any comments on this and compared to the last album, let me know in the comments down below. But back to the song, I noticed it starts to get a little bit more easy listening towards the middle, and then it reverted back to that like death metal sound. And by the way, these first two songs were the singles that were released prior to the album release. The third song was the third single. It was called Melancholy. I'm going to put the text on the screen because the spelling of the title kind of gives it, it's a different spelling, so it kind of tells you what it's about. I thought this one sounded very goth rock. It had a lot more cleaner tones. It had a more accessible sound. So all the songs after this are album cuts, and the aforementioned channels that were talking about this album said that these were the songs they didn't like. So let me talk about them. One of the standout tracks was called Cold, spelled with a K. I'll put the text on the screen. I felt this one reminded me of some old school Opeth back when they did the death growls. I thought it was not too bad. It had a sound mix between goth and melodic death metal, maybe something like Amorphous. I thought it was a good song. I liked the dark and creepy atmosphere about it. Then there was another song called November Dust. This one starts with this creepy piano playing, so I like that part of it. It sounds like an old horror movie intro, like an old 50s horror movie. But then the band comes in and the song starts to take a more of a gothic sound. This one had a darker vibe. They also used those low baritone vocals that were similar to Peter Steele, so it sounded a lot like a Typo Negative song. I thought it was good, although they were really like reaching for that particular sound. But overall, as an album, it's not too bad. There were other goth albums that were released not too long ago from the bands Unto Others and High Parasite, which in my opinion were much better. But this is not too bad. My score is going to be 7.5 out of 10. I think I might need to spend more time with it. It might go up by the end of the month, but overall, I don't think it's like as bad as like so many other people were saying. I have one more band, and that is Ashen. The name of the album is Ecstatic Death Rain. This is another band from Finland. They're new on the scene. They were founded in 2021. They're just a straightforward old school death metal band. This is their debut full-length album, although they have released a few singles, a few EPs, and a few splits in the past years. The album has 8 songs. Most of the songs are anywhere from 3.5 minutes to 6 minutes, so it's pretty straightforward death metal. The opening track is called Body Bog, and it's what you expect from a death metal band. It has some fast rhythms, rapid fire drum beats, some deep guttural vocals. This is the type of song that goes really hard, really fast at first, but then they add in some of those chunky, palm-muted guitar riffs. So the song in particular goes from semi-fast to very fast throughout its runtime. The vocals remind me of Suffocation a little as well. They also added in some lead guitar playing, and that gave the song a little bit of melody. But overall, this opening track was the kind of song you just want to bang your head to. Next song is called Catharsis Through Torture. They continue with the speed and aggression. This song was pretty straightforward death metal. After this was Ecstatic Death Rain, and this gets a little slower. And this is the first time they slow down, but they also have a lot of that chugging and deep guttural vocals. I would call this one of their mid-paced death metal songs. I would also say it even leans towards melodic death metal with some of the melodic lead guitar work, but I like the fact that this song has some cool galloping rhythms. There's also a song, a long title called Ancient Tomb, something, I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's very different. It starts with like a slow bass guitar riff, and it builds up, and it hits you with these big guitar chords and melodic leads. Then the song goes full blast. It goes into some straightforward death metal. Then about midway through the song, they shift gears and they slow down and it gets melodic. Then there was a track called Cave of Staring Eyes, which sounded like some cool old school Florida death metal, something like Leprosy era death. I thought it was cool and an old school death metal track. Then it was the track called Heartwarming, which is spelled as I have it on the screen. That's more of a death doom type of track, maybe similar to the band Autopsy. It just had that very like sick and vile sound with slower rhythms. Overall, not too bad. They're giving you what you expect. It's just some cool old school death metal. I give this one 8 out of 10. I think if you like death metal, it's a mix of that like old school Florida death metal with some of that like Swedish death metal like Entombed. I think you should check out this album. So that is all. Check out last week's episode of New Metal Releases for October 11th. Thanks for watching. Please give this video a like. Helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you have not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.